Welcome to the Real Life Podcast with your hosts, leadership and personal growth author and speaker John C. Donahue and licensed psychotherapist Lou Carfisi. The Real Life Podcast is your weekly dose of motivation, encouragement, and direction to help you live your life at the highest level.
Well, hello and welcome everybody to the Real Life Podcast. My name is John Donahue and I come to you from johncdonahue.com, where I talk about leadership, personal development, and ways that you can not only just grow and develop as a leader, but also in the business world through marketing, social media, that kind of stuff. That's what I focused on. Joining me each week is my co-host. He's my best friend. He is licensed psychotherapist, Mr. Lou Carfisi, and he comes to you from lifecarecounseling.net. How you doing, pal?
I'm doing just fine, my friend. Doing just fine.
So good. So good to have you here tonight, Lou. And guys, it's so great to have you either watching or listening live via facebook.com/real life podcast or listening to the podcast. Thank you for taking time out of your week to listen or watch. You can also see us on the YouTube page, Real Life Podcast YouTube page. You can see the video there. But if you are free on Monday nights, you can come watch us record live. Warts and all, right?
Warts and all.
Warts and all. So we do that at 7 o'clock Eastern time, Monday nights. Now, having said that, we're not going to be here next week because we're going to be celebrating Christmas. But every Monday night after that, we're going to be here. You are cordially invited. Please find us on Facebook at facebook.com/real life podcast. Find us on Twitter at Real Life Cast, and come visit us at reallifepodcast.com. So it's the most wonderful time of year, right? Merry Christmas. Happy holidays, Lou.
Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas, my friend.
It's a time of year that we always think about new beginnings. We talk about the brand new year as kind of a launching pad for starting new projects, kind of refocusing on who we are and what we do, and maybe making some New Year's resolutions. It's a very interesting time of year. Why do you think the new year does this to us? Is it just because it's a brand new year? We think that this is like a brand new white page. Why do we do this?
Everybody likes a clean slate, second chance. You know, even though it might be the 40th chance, it doesn't really matter. We like opportunity, and we see, a new year coming. It's a good place to draw that line and say, okay, from this point on, I'm going to, and then you fill in the blank.
Right.
Or I'm not going to fill in the blank.
Right.
Right.
So when we are looking at that blank sheet of paper, when we're looking at that new chance, that new beginning of the fresh, clean, crisp new year, unsullied by any bad decisions, unmarred by any poor behavior or any nasty habits that we just can't seem to drop, pristine and no mistakes, nothing that we've done to screw it up. It's exciting. It's something that we love to do. I love this time of year because it allows me the ability to, clean out hard drives and clean off desktops. And I could retool some things that haven't been working. I take a week and just kind of focus on getting prepped for the new year. But from a coaching perspective, this is a great time of year because everybody's kind of focused on making, changes because it's new. This is a great time for people to be planning how they're going to do the next year. And I don't know if you get the same. I'm sure my clientele is a little different than yours.
Yes, it is.
So I don't think you have a lot of people coming in going, "Hey, Lou, it's the end of the year. I just want to come in and, I talk." But which they don't, do they? I don't think they do. Would they?
Well, no. Everybody likes to reset. I mean, the people who I see, they may have different problems that they come to me for,
right?
But they're just people, and they're experiencing the same things that you and I and everybody else is experiencing, and would like that new fresh slate to clean off and begin a new year. So absolutely. So the question that I start off with when somebody says, "Hey, John, I'm looking towards the new year. How do I make they phrase it different ways. How do I make a better impact? How do I, make changes where I'm more successful?
What can I do differently? Those are the type of questions. That's how the conversations usually start. To which I always respond the same way. What are you going to do differently next year from the way that you did it this year? What habits do you need to change / break / begin that's going to affect how you act differently next year? How are you going to change the way you think? How are you going to change the way you behave? What are you going to change that's going to make next year any different from this year? And that's a fair question.
So they're looking for an answer from you.
Right.
They want to know what it is how do you see it, because you're an outsider and you're somebody who can give them a good perspective.
Right. Yeah, but it's hard for me to just give them a patent answer, because I have to know what they're going through. I have to know some of their life circumstance. It would be impossible for me for someone to walk up and say, "Hey, John, I've got this new year coming up. What can I do differently?" If you need a point blank answer, I would probably say, change your bad habits, start eating better, exercising, read more books, turn the TV off, go outside, love your family more, and think about the past less. Have a nice day. That'll be $500, please. I've not had anybody take me up on that. That's the sad thing.
I can't figure it out.
I know, it's crazy. My business model is broken. But it's never cut and dried. It's not cut and dried for what you do, so it's not cut and dried for what I do. It's a little different extreme. But so what I usually have people do is we go through a process, because you want the changes that you're making to stick. You want to make changes that make an impact in not only your life, but the lives of others. You want what you do next year to matter even more than they matter this year, if you're doing things differently at all. That makes sense?
It makes absolute sense. In other words, how do you tell somebody when they say to you, "Listen, I've done this and I've done it so poorly. How do I make a new start with this?" What do you tell them? How do you get into like the little pieces of what they did, or how do you do that? How do you take that apart?
I would start off with asking why they want to do what it is. So let's say somebody comes to me and says, "Hey, John, I have this really bad habit of always being late to work, and it really drives me crazy. How can I no longer be late to work?" Okay, that's great. Tell me why you don't want to be late to work anymore. I start with their motivation, what motivates them, because if I can find out what's motivating them, I can also find out what will encourage and motivate them on the back end to propel them into their change. I would find out why, the very first thing, why. And, because I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want to get a bad reputation. I'm going to get fired. Okay. That would be the first thing. Go with why.
Go with why. Okay.
Right. I would find out what their why is. And then I would break down what their process is. Are they staying out late at night? Are they watching too much TV? Or, as a lot of friends of mine do, they play way too many video games late into the evening. They don't have the ability to turn the alarm off and get out of bed. They keep hitting the snooze button. We go through what is causing them to be late outside of their just choosing to not get up and get out of bed. What's the process? So I get with the what, the why, and then, how we can change it. So those are my three biggies: what, why, and how, usually.
Okay.
So
that makes sense.
Yeah. So what I would like to do, what I do with a lot of people, and maybe this will help you, is I'm going to go through a real quick way that you can prepare to have the best year of your life. I mean, that's kind of what we're all looking for, right? The best year of our lives. So let's go through this really quick process, and Lou's going to chime in as well. So it's not always going to be me talking. But the one thing I did want to tell you on the front end, and I'll remind you at the back end of this, is we're going to have a PDF available that you can click on a link and you can download that. And it's a quick PDF that you can work through on your own to kind of prepare to get you ready for 2017 in the best way possible. So let's start off. The first thing is you have to know where you've been, and before you start really plotting out where you want to go. As far as this kind of thing, so you have to reflect. Number one is reflect on the past year. Ask yourself questions like, what went well? What in the 2016, what went really well? What were your successes? Go ahead and grab some paper and write that out. These are my successes. I did this really well. We achieved this. I read all these books. What do you think is a win and what went well? And then in the next column, I would write down what did not go well. And you would need to be really honest. I did not do these things well. I did not accomplish this goal, or I'm late to work all the time. That did not go well. And then in the mistakes that you've made, ask yourself, what did you learn? Learn from the mistakes you made. We say that all the time. In the morning motivators that I do every day, learn from your mistakes. That's vital. So if you've made some mistakes, what did you learn from it? And then what would you like to do better next year? This is when we start turning the corner on reflecting on 2016 and start looking towards 2017. Does that make sense?
Do you tell them to sort of, once they make a plan for what they'd like to do better, and they give you the lessons that they've learned,
right?
That is this whole concept of a new slate,
Correct.
of a new year.
Mm-hmm.
So they have to close out first,
right,
the old year,
right,
and then don't look back necessarily, unless you're going to look back for the purposes of making sure that you don't make the same mistakes again. But
right,
you know what I mean. They
Very
have
well
to
said.
close the door. Yeah.
Very well said. Very well said. Reflecting on the past year is not meant to be something that you do every day. Once we go through this process, this first step, it's done. The new year's exactly what you said, closed out. There's no going back just to harp on it. I mean, if you're going back to learn something, makes sense. So what you said, perfect, brilliant. How do you feel about people who? What's the struggle with a lot of people in their jobs? What are the biggest struggles that people have in their jobs that aren't necessarily, I have a bad boss?
The problem that I encounter, like with people, is it has to do with them and their personalities and what they do,
right,
before work, after work, and how they interact with their other the people at work. And
gotcha.
it includes their boss.
Right.
It includes their boss. So, I mean, all of those things make it up. But the question I ask, which is probably similar to something that you would ask, would be: do you get that really despair feeling in your belly on Sunday night at 8 o'clock?
Right. Yeah, and that's the question. And I cannot speak for Lou, but I have a sneaky suspicion he would probably agree that he's felt like this before. But that Sunday night pit of the stomach, knowing that I have to get up in the morning and face the job again for a brand new week, is sometimes completely overwhelming. Did you ever have days that you never wanted to get out of bed?
Well, not me personally.
Yeah,
not me personally, but
right.
But yeah, I have people who
right.
who experience that. It's usually called depression.
Right. And when you're dealing with depression, that's something that you deal with on a much larger basis than I do. When I have people that come to me and say, I just don't want to get out of bed in the morning, they usually say that they hate their job. I've had that a lot, or they just have no joy in what they do. And usually when somebody says that to me, that's a huge signal. Outside of anything like you're talking about, they just have, it's a personality thing, or if it's an interpersonal relational thing. Usually when somebody says that to me and it's not that, it's usually because what they do and who they are, how they're wired, is misaligned. There's no alignment there. So what I would suggest to them is the second step in how to prepare is to find a mission or a passion. Find something that makes your heart race. Find something that you're passionate about. Find that thing that would make you jump out of bed each and every day, and start focusing all of your energies in that direction. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to find a job that moment in that area. You might have to create that. You might have to create a career, and that might take months, years. It might take a long time for you to be able to have that perfect situation, and that perfect situation might never come. But as long as you're working towards that goal of really aligning what you love, who you are, and what you do for a living, that's a big deal. And so then you can start figuring out ways that your passions, the mission of what you feel like your life is called to do, you can start bringing those pieces into your life and start really living the life where you don't dread getting out of bed on Mondays. So you mentioned depression. Why do you think, Lou, from your perspective, why is it important that people need to be passionate and at least enjoy, but really passionate about what they do?
Well, first of all, you don't want them to be some of the people that don't want to get out of bed in the morning to go to work, or the ones that have that really nasty feeling in their belly when they know they have to go somewhere tomorrow.
Right.
I think in general, a large population of people they're not happy with what they do.
Wow.
They're either overqualified and they feel like they're not being utilized. I think that almost everybody can say that to some level. They're not using all my talents. They're not using everything I do.
Right.
If you're passionate about what you do, that doesn't really matter, because you'll know and you'll get a sense of peace about you and a sense of purpose, because you'll want to do what it is you do for a living.
Right.
I've done a lot of things, and in doing all the things that I've done, what I do now is the one that I know I should have been doing all along. So this is something I'm passionate. This is something I'm passionate about.
Right.
I want that for other people. I want other people to be passionate about what they do.
I agree. I'm totally with you on that. And like in my situation, I had some interpersonal issues with a couple of bosses that made it very difficult for me. It wasn't that I didn't love what I did. It was the interpersonal, the relationship piece, that very first thing that you were talking about. But I'll be honest with you, once I started really aligning my motivations, my passions towards, including that into what I was doing in my day-to-day, or I found the motivation, which I think is key, because some people, it's really hard to be motivated when you're in a cubicle, unless you have found the motivation for why that space in that cubicle is so important. You're not just a cog in a machine. If you feel that way, maybe it's time for you to find another means of employment. But if you can figure out what works for you and the motivation behind why you do what you do, and it may only be, hey, this is just one step in my next step for a career. And I think that that's fine. But a lot of people aren't thinking like that. So I think they are miserable, and they're miserable because, they're either out of alignment, they have some interpersonal issues, or a combination. And that makes for a very unhappy work experience.
You bring up a good point. It just brought to mind the reason that people do not follow their passion. One of the reasons is because they've been told that their passion is really not lucrative. You're not going to make any money doing that.
Right.
Oh, you can't. And they hear this from either the people in their lives, their family, or their parenting. They hear it from their parents. They say, "Why would you want to do that for a living?" Those things are still. If you're one of these people and you still have that passion in your belly, then find a way to do it.
Right.
That you have to be passionate about what you're doing. Right. Otherwise,
why
it's not fun.
Right. Why exist almost? What purpose what purpose is there to live a life where you're not passionately engaged in what you do for a living and how you live your life? And it's very difficult to live for the weekends, because that's a 2-day span of time that you're enduring 5 days.
Right.
And it's finding that whatever it is that you do, and I think, dovetailing off what you said, a lot of people want to do X, Y, and Z, but there is not necessarily a lot of money in it. And if you can structure your life to where you don't need a lot of money and be happy as a lark, focusing on underwater basket weaving, That's awesome. Go be the best underwater basket weaver you can be. But on the flip side, if you are coming out of college thinking, I've got a major in underwater basket weaving and there's no real market for that, there's, I don't know really what to tell you. I think somebody gave you some poor advice along the way, but, but I think that finding, this is the greatest time to be alive during this age with technology and social media. I think that if you have a passion and you're good at what you do, which is a piece of the puzzle that we don't really talk about a lot, if you are talented, or if you can figure out a way to gain more talent with social media and the internet, there's no reason why you can't be successful to whatever degree that you want to be successful.
Do you have to do for a living? Do you have to do what you're passionate about for a living, or can you do your passion after your job or along
Sure.
with?
That's a great question, and I did kind of mislead in the conversation. You're correct. You can do what you're passionate about, on the side. If that's something that I'm going to work whatever job I'm working during the day so that I have the ability to go home at night or get up early in the morning and do what I love to do. And then on weekends I can do that. Yeah, if that's good for you, that's great. For me, it's a little different. I'm wired a little differently. But if you don't have to do what you love for a living, and many times when you do what you love for a living, it no longer is something that you love. So I understand. It's a great question. So
it's keep the focus. So it's keep the focus, right? Keep the
Correct.
focus on what it is, so that if you see your job, then you have to see past your job. If
Right.
it's not something that you're doing for the purposes of getting your passion,
Right.
getting your passion itch scratched, so to speak.
So to speak. So the next thing that I always want to bring up with people, especially when we're looking at trying to prepare for the most awesome year in our lives, the third thing on our list is really forget flimsy resolutions. Resolutions don't work, and we'll get to that in a second. The words that we want to focus on is to set compelling goals. And compelling is a great word. If you are compelled to do something, that's a lot different than setting a New Year's resolution. So why don't most New Year's resolutions work? Why do people fail at New Year's resolutions?
Because they set their expectations too high.
Yes.
Way too high.
Way too high.
I'm going to lose 100 pounds in 2 weeks, Sorry.
Right. It's not even, just because you did doesn't mean that somebody, resolutions don't work unless they're tied to something compelling.
Right.
And you have a plan. So that's the problem. When we're all sitting around, New Year's Eve or even the days before, just after the New Year, and we're all thinking about what's my New Year's resolution? Lose weight. Okay, great. A lot of people make that resolution, but most people don't. Some people go as far as to joining a gym. That's great. Some people go as far as to throwing out all the junk food in their refrigerator, and we're going to eat healthy. And that's what we're going to do. And that usually lasts until the Super Bowl. And then after the Super Bowl, everything goes downhill. Gym memberships, you're locked into a 2-year contract, and you're paying $10 to $30 a month, and you've only been to the gym maybe a handful of times. That's one example. There's plenty of New Year's resolutions that have nothing to do with working out or being healthy that we fail out. The reason that they all fail is because the expectations we have are so high, and we don't have a plan to work back to make sure that we can achieve them. You have to set goals that are achievable, not so achievable that you can do it next week, because that's not really a big goal. I'm talking about something that will take some work to do, but you can do it within 365 days. That's important.
So what are some reasonable goals for somebody?
Well, if somebody wants to lose, go ahead.
No, I was going to ask you, what are some of the things that, besides losing weight? That's an obvious one. It's
sure.
Bally's Fitness just makes billions of dollars doing every January.
Right.
But other than that, how can we set a reasonable goal for ourselves? What is the process?
It really is going back to, and this is kind of delving into the next thing as well, but it really does go back to planning. So let's just pick a goal of, I want to spend more time with my family. That's a fair goal. That's a goal that I've actually talked to somebody about. I want to spend more time with my family. And then I go through the process. Well, okay, so why do you want to spend more time with your family? Well, I get to the end of my day and I feel horrible because I haven't really spent time with my kids and they're growing up so fast. I don't want to miss out. Okay. Why? Why do you feel like that you're missing out? Well, I'm just not here. Okay. Why are you not there? Well, I work all this extra overtime and I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Okay. So why are you working that overtime? I just keep drilling down as far as I can to find the motivation. Once I find the motivation, okay, I want to spend more time with my kids because I feel like they're growing up too fast. Here's what we do. Let's look at what your typical day requires. You have to be at work X amount of hours. Do you commute? Can you work from home some? Can you maybe do 10-hour days and work 4 days a week so that you're home 3 days a week? Can you change your schedule around to where you're maybe working different types of shifts? Can you do anything with your schedule to where you're allowing more hours in the day for your family? How much TV do you watch? How much video games do you play? Are you going out and hanging out with your friends after work? We start processing through and eliminating things from your schedule to where you're carving out more time. We only have 24 hours in the day, and it's how we choose to use those 24 hours that makes whether or not we're successful at whatever our goal is.
So you set priorities.
Exactly.
You change them.
Right. We change their priorities. We take where they're at. They say this is important. I want to lose weight is great, but is it a priority? Is it something that you're going to do and really hang on to it? Is it compelling? If it's compelling, then your new priority is don't eat junk food, eat healthy portions, make sure that you're working out, and make sure that you're not, doing things like drinking a lot or, consuming a lot of junk food or soda pop. You shift your priorities over.
Okay.
Goals.
I mean, right. Should they set some goals, or how do they go about doing that?
Well, I've always encouraged people to look at goals in a little bit of a different fashion, because a lot of people, when they set goals, it's like, I want to do this, I want to get my college degree, I want to lose weight, I want to spend more time, I want to go on a vacation. Those are great goals. I don't know if they're necessarily as compelling to me as they might be for you, but I encourage people to look at their life in 360 degrees. So you have family life, you have work life, you have financial responsibilities, you have professional responsibilities, you have health responsibilities, and you have, and I usually say like education, whatever. I try to round it out to 6. 6 just happens to be a good number for me. So those are the 6 things: health, education, professional, personal, family, and financial. And then we talk about what do you want to do this year that you did poorly or you would like to do better than last year. Under family, spend more time with my kids, take a vacation a year. Under financial, I want to save more money. Okay, you have to be specific. You have to go through and specifically say, how much money do you want to save? You have to go through these big ideas for all those areas. Maybe you don't want to have 6 goals. Maybe you just want to have 2 or 3, but be specific about what you want to do. I want to lose 50 pounds by December 31st of 2017. Great. That's a specific goal. You've given yourself an end date. So everything else works backwards. Your priority needs to be making sure that you're attaining that goal. How do you do that? We all, eat right, work out, that kind of thing. We're spending a lot of time talking about weight loss. So let's talk about time saving. I want to read One of the goals that I had for last year was to read, and I've included listen to, because I do a lot of books on audio. I want to read 24 books by the end of December 31st, 2016. I'll have read or listened to 22 books. So I missed it by 2. But what I did is to carve out that time. I got into Audible so that when I was driving, I could listen to books. I carried books with me whenever I was going someplace. And when I was at a doctor's visit, I had a book with me and I was reading it. I read in the afternoon. I read at night, and I figured out ways I would not, play on YouTube or play on, watching TV or video games because I was reading. I had to make that a priority. That's a goal. That's an attainable goal. It's a big goal. I couldn't read 24 books in a month. I could if I didn't want to work, but I set a goal, and that allowed me to work backwards through this process.
So you have to set small goals, right? Because in other words, you have to you develop a plan, goal, and then you set up, you segment it, and how are you going to do it?
Yeah, that's the.
And you make them.
Go ahead.
You make them drill down into the details.
Right.
Right. How are you going to do it?
Yeah, we break it down. We basically break the goal down. So if you're going to read 24 books and you've got 12 months, you know that you need to read 2 books a month. That means you need to read a book every 2 weeks. That's the type of thing that you need to do. And then the next thing is to try to plan. You try to plan out your year. So I know that I need to read a book every 2 months. So in my calendar, I have a book title for 2 weeks. I know that I need to be reading this book during this week. So I know that, starting on Monday, January 2nd until whatever the day is, January 15th or 16th, I have that much allotted time to read this one specific book. That's what you break down your goal to. If you want to lose weight, you break it down how many months you have in the year, how much weight do you have to lose every month to make this work, how much weight do you have to lose every week in a month to lose the weight that you want to lose, and put it down in your calendar. One of the things that I encourage people to do is like this. The 5th thing is plan out your entire year. What I'll do next week is I'll look at my calendar and I'll map out everything that I know that I have to do, every vacation, every day off that I know that I have, every, like recording podcasts on Mondays, I have to carve that time out. Every meeting that I know that I have goes on the calendar. And then I start putting in things like my goals. I have to read this book for these 2 weeks. I have to do this on this specific day. I have this much time. It really starts becoming, I know it sounds like a lot of work, but it really is how you start managing achieving your goals. You want 2017 to be different than 2016. Well, this is what you have to do. Have a goal, break it down, figure out how to work backwards from where you're at, put it on your calendar. Once it's written out, then it starts becoming real in your mind.
Yeah, sounds like a plan.
Right. When somebody has a plan like this, Lou, when they've taken a goal, they've written it out, they've mapped out, okay, I need to do this once, I need to do this thing every month, which means I need to do this every week or every day or however it works out. What happens mentally when somebody knows that they have this written out and they know that they have that kind of plan and they're working the plan? When somebody has a plan and they start working it and they start having little achievements along the way, what happens to somebody mentally?
Well, they get encouraged. They feel good about themselves, gives them good self-esteem, makes them feel that they've accomplished something. So some people, to be fair, some people don't. Some people can't because they procrastinate. Right. So if they see a plan that says, all right, so every 2 weeks, in your example, every 2 weeks I have to read a book. Well, something happens and you don't get to read the book. Now you're thinking, oh no, now I have to read 2 books within the next, and then they get overwhelmed with it. So you have to be very careful to make sure that the expectations that you have of yourself and the plan that you make is realistic and accommodate for slippage, for something that could happen. Right.
Right. You have to be adjustable. You have to be flexible. Life happens. Right. And that's the great thing about goals. If I went into 2016, if I went into 2017 and I didn't have any goals, I get to the end of the year and I have nothing to feel bad about. I didn't miss any of my goals. I didn't have any goals, but I didn't miss any. Good for me. But the problem is now I'm looking at 2017 and I'm like, I really didn't do anything in 2016. I really wasn't working on anything. And maybe that causes me to feel bad about myself. That causes some of that, motivation that's based on a negative feeling. So you have a goal. I want to lose 100 pounds in a year. Can it be done? Yes. Is it difficult? Extremely. But it can be done.
Yes.
There's going to be weeks when you don't lose weight. You'll plateau. There's going to be weeks where you gain weight. There's going to be weeks when you don't eat right. There's going to be weeks when you get sick and you don't work out, you don't eat right, and your body weight fluctuates because of the illness. All these things can happen. But here's the great thing about goals. You set a goal. And if you set the goal to lose 100 pounds and you only lose 80, you've lost 80 pounds in a year. I mean, I would rather shoot for the stars and land on the moon than to not even have tried. And I think that's the important thing. A goal is important, but it's not the end of the world. You need to be flexible. You need to be able to adjust it. If you don't think you're going to make the goal, keep shooting for it. But maybe you need to adjust instead of trying to lose 100 pounds. At this rate, I can't do 100 pounds. Okay, let's readjust the goal. I can lose 80 pounds. I'm going to keep working. 80 pounds is the number. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Do you?
No. I think that has to be kind of worked into the plan. Just as you said, put it into the plan with your goal, and make sure that just in case you become superhuman at some point in time, and you can make all of these goals, which I doubt very much that you can.
Right.
You have a way that you can say, well, okay, it was a misstep, so now I can get back on track by doing this.
Right. I think the important thing about going into this is, some people might have just one big goal. Some people might try to do too many goals. That's always the thing. Because I have 6 areas that I focus on, doesn't mean you need to have 6 or 12 or however many goals. You need to pick what's going to bring you happiness, bring you success, and help you be motivated to make positive change in your life. A goal, if it's compelling, is the one big thing that you need to do. Me reading 24 books in 2016 is not going to make or break me. But I made I drew a line in the sand, so to speak. I wanted to read more. In what I do for a living, I have to read more, and I'm kind of a slower reader. So I set the goal pretty high. And I didn't think it was completely, my expectation wasn't super high, but I thought it was a pretty big goal. I went from reading maybe 15 books a month or a year to 24. That was a big jump, and I came close. But the thing is, that was my big goal. I didn't have a ton of other things there. I probably needed to have another goal or two in there. I didn't do enough. I was busy doing a lot of other things, and I let a lot of things slide. But going into the year with 2 or 3 things that you want to focus on that year is a lot better than most people. Most people have these great New Year's resolutions that they're going to fail within the next month. And I think that's what's going to separate you from other people, and that's going to cause you to be more successful. And you know what? Being successful is really only important to you. You have to be happy with who you are. Being successful is what you define as success. It's not what other people think. It's not what other people, thrust upon you. And we've talked about that before, Lou. If you are setting the standard for your own success, and success to you means you're going to read 5 books this year, and you read 4, you've read 4 books this year. That's probably 4 more books than you read the year before. And that's success to me.
Mm-hmm.
So
you're not telling them to settle for mediocrity.
No, don't settle for mediocrity, but don't think that you have to be Superman either.
Right.
And all good things in moderation.
Right.
Reasonable expectations. There's the word. We talked about that a lot. So that brings us actually to the final thing. There are 6 things that you can do to prepare for the best year of your life. And the last one is really just remember this one important thing is don't do it alone. You don't have to be alone during this process. There's a lot of things that you can do to help you in your success. You can get an accountability partner. You can find somebody that you work with, that you can be honest with, you can be open with, with reasonable protection for yourself. Maybe you can find somebody like a mentor, maybe an advisor, maybe somebody that you can go to when you're struggling through certain issues. Maybe you need to hire somebody like me who's a coach. I find areas that you can work in. I can help you process through issues that you're struggling with, work, planning, lifetime. Those are the areas, personal development and leadership. Maybe you need to find somebody like me and talk to me. Maybe you need to find somebody like Lou. Maybe there's some issues that keep recurring in your life that, 2016 was great, except for this. I have those problems at work. When Lou mentioned that thing about, the coworkers thing, that resonated with me because that's my thing. I can't get past that. Maybe you need to find somebody like Lou and get some counseling, some type of therapy. And there's nothing wrong with that. And there's certainly nothing wrong with getting a preventative maintenance checkup. Maybe you don't feel like you need, quote unquote, and I'm using my air quotes here, counseling, but it certainly wouldn't be a bad idea to talk to somebody like Lou to get a checkup, just some preventative maintenance, right?
That's right. People usually wait until the symptoms are overwhelming,
right?
And then they fall apart, and then they have to go see you.
Right.
Don't wait until that time.
Really. Right. And that's the great thing about, Lou or myself, because that's what we do in our profession. Sometimes it's easier. And I know I want to tread lightly. Sometimes it's easier to compensate someone to be an objective third party than having someone that you work with, that you are around like a friend, or somebody that you live near. Sometimes it's easier for somebody like us to come in than it is to trust a friend or a coworker. Sometimes it makes the lines a lot more clear. Is that a fair statement?
Absolutely. You're not going to be able to. It's the reason why we have an ethics code in therapy that you can't do therapy on a member of your family, or you shouldn't do therapy on a member of your family. And that's the reason why, is because you see them, you know them too well. You're too close to the situation. You're not objective.
Right. So that's pretty much kind of working through the process. Do you have any other questions for me? Are we good?
No, I think you've touched all the important areas. Basically, you're telling people that they need to plan, and they need to set expectations that are reasonable, and they need to look with optimism at the coming year. Let the end of the year, let that December 31st, let that be the line, that after you cross over that line, everything is fresh. Just like in the morning when the sun comes up, everything's new.
That's right. Changing your priorities, changing your perspective, having a plan and working the plan. It doesn't have to be big, doesn't have to be superhuman, but it's a whole lot better than trying to make a resolution stick. Make sure that it's compelling. Those are the important key words there. So to help you with that, we've put together a PDF that will be available when the podcast goes live, which will be this Wednesday. If you want to go to reallifepodcast.com/best year, you will be able to download that PDF when it becomes available. And it's a little workbook to talk to work you through the things that we've talked about. And we would love to get that to you totally free. You'll also be able to download an MP3 version of this podcast that you can take with you, just in case there's anything that you stumble upon that you might need some extra help with. You can come back and listen to that section. And then the final thing is to encourage people, to encourage you to reach out to Lou or myself at questions at reallifepodcast.com. Where can they find us online, my friend?
Well, they can find us. They can find you at johncdonahue.com on your personal webpage. They can find me at lifecarecounseling.net, which is my practice. They can find us at on Twitter at what is it? Real Life Cast.
Yep.
I believe it is. Twitter.com, Real Life Cast.
Yep.
And of course, here on Facebook at Real Life Podcast.
Right. And make sure you visit our website, which is reallifepodcast.com. So I think that's about it. This is the last live show for 2017 or 2016. Sorry, I'm already in next year. For 2017. Thank you, Lou, for everything. And I hope that you have a wonderful holiday and a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Same to you, John, and to Sarah, Ariane, and everybody. Just tell everybody I said hi. And
that's right.
I wish you the best, my friend.
Thanks. And we want to wish you the happiest of New Year's, the very merriest of Christmas or the holidays, and make sure that you plan right now to have the best year of your life. And I hope that includes the Real Life Podcast. So remember, here's where you get real help, real hope, reallifepodcast.com. You guys have a great night. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening to the Real Life Podcast. Find out more information and sign up for the Real Life Podcast newsletter at reallifepodcast.com. You can also learn more about our hosts, Lou Carfisi at lifecarecounseling.net and John Donahue at johncdonahue.com. And remember, live your life to the fullest. And as always, we want to encourage you to choose to be awesome, because when you choose to be awesome, you will be. Have a great week, everyone.